Joomla 1.6. What's new in Joomla 1.6? Brought to you by the following sponsors. Thanks, guys. Rockin', the official web host of Joomla. Jetler, the Joomla enterprise layer. CMS Association, host of the CMS Expo, helping you connect to the CMS community. Business Geeks, make the most of your technology. And Studio Solutions, advertising, web and video. And now for our host, the Master Chef of Joomla, Mr. Andrew Eddy.
So, thank you all for coming to my talks today. I'll be talking about the Joomla 1.6 beta version, which should be released very, very soon. And this talk is mainly about the new features and the changes to Joomla 1.6 that are going to affect you as site administrators, people setting up Joomla sites, managing users and content and that sort of thing. So what we're looking at the moment on the screen is what the back end looks like. We'll be in the back end most of this session. And we have a new theme. We generally change the colour for every version, and this one happens to be blue, which is really cool. And the work's been done by a guy by the name of Ron Saverdia in the States. And I think it's a nice, fresh, new look has been well overdue. So one of the things, what I want to start with is just a few things that have shifted around. Where have they gone? And the main thing I want to look at the moment is the site menu. Now, if you're familiar with 1.5, you'll see there's a few things different here. Several things have moved out and into the site menu. Media Manager is no longer here. The tools menu that used to be over here somewhere has moved mostly into the site region. Users has expanded because we've got new features there. Menu is much the same. Content is similar, but if you're looking for the Media Manager, that's where the Media Manager has gone into there. And down the track in future versions, content is going to become less article-centric, and so we thought media would marry with content a little bit better. Components hasn't changed much. Extensions has changed a little bit. There's no longer install update. We have a full-on extension manager. And help has really improved. We've got the main Joomla help, but then there's also links to all of the other family of Joomla sites, so that when people are checking this out, they actually have links to other things. What can I add on? Where's the documentation? That sort of thing. And I think that's a pretty good improvement for the version. You'll also notice things in the new menu, little shortcuts to add a new article, add a new category. One of the things that we hear constantly about Joomla is, I don't know where to start, and that sort of thing. And these sort of little shortcuts will I think help people get into Joomla a little bit faster, particularly if you're coming from another system that you're used to doing things in a different way. So I'm just going to walk through we'll walk through each of these screens and just see what the changes are and what's going on. So global configuration is very similar to the old way. We've got a lot of changes for sites other than English, and we'll cover a few of those things later on as well. But you can see there's a new option there for Unicode Aliases, and what Unicode means is you'll be able to literally read URLs in Greek or Russian or Cyrillic or other different languages. There was a change recently that supported that. So Is that there? We've got there's a few SEO improvements in global configuration. In the system tag, there's an interesting feature in 1.5. Most of you should know about the TP=1 that you can add on to the end of a URL, and it will show the template positions or the module positions in the template. We had a bit of feedback during our development of 1.6 that people don't want to have that necessarily. And so there's now a configuration option to disable that if you don't want people trying to steal your module layouts and positions, which, but I think it's a good thing. And so, debug modules is that setting which turns off the TP=1. Everything else there is pretty much the same, except what you won't see are the things that are missing. And those are user parameters, or the old user parameters, and media parameters. Now, they're in a different location, and we'll explore those in a little while. In the server, there's not much change in the server tab, but something I'll draw your attention to is the locale setting, and particularly the setting of the server time zone. It's no longer an offset. In 1.5 we use a number. We're in +10 GMT time zone. My mate in New Orleans is -5 or -6, depending on whether it's daylight saving time. But in 1.6 we have the ability to actually, I don't know why I'm in Abidjan, but we have the ability to set the exact time zone because of new features in PHP that we're running on. So just got to find Brisbane's close enough, and we can save that. And now my server time's at Brisbane. So there's no longer the concept of this fixed time zone, and this should, I hope, providing the servers automatically correct for daylight saving. So in 1.5, the message is always, wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and put your clocks forward. Well, for Joomla users, you also have to wake up and put your server offset forward on your Joomla site. But I believe that will be fixed in this version, which will be really cool. There's also a new tab here for permissions, and this is the backbone of the new access control and permission system, and I won't be covering that now. We'll be doing that in our next talk after lunch. But that's a really cool and possibly mind-bending solution feature in 1.6. Okay, so I should say, before we go too far on, there's a few critical changes to 1.6 in terms of your site setup. You need to ensure that your host is running on PHP 5.2.4 as a minimum. You need to make sure their MySQL database is 5.0.4 as a minimum. In terms of browser support, the browser support will be for Internet Explorer 7+, Firefox 3.x and Safari 4.x. We've made a move with quite a few other people to drop IE6 support. That doesn't mean that you can't design templates to comply with IE6. I'm certainly well aware of government organisations, non-government organisations that are locked into IE6 for whatever reason, because they've got business add-ons that just need it and they can't shift yet. There's every possibility for them to create their own back-end and front-end templates to be able to support the little idiosyncrasies of IE6 or whatever browser they're locked into for their standard operating environment. Okay, so we might move on to, I'll just quickly glance over the user manager, you can see that we've got, the user manager is very similar. One new feature here is you're able to select a number of people and manually activate them, which is pretty useful if you've got a lot of people that have just missed activation. You can go in there. Also in the user manager, we have the ability to for admin approvals now. There's automatic activation, there's activation with the two-step process, but now there's also the ability for administrator to approve registrations. What you'll also see as we're going through is just generally there's a lot of consistency been brought into toolbars and list layouts so that everything sort of has a similar look and feel. Most toolbar icons are roughly in the same order. So there's been a lot of work in that sort of thing. Now, I mentioned before while we're in the global configuration that some things have gone missing from global configurations. User settings is one of them. What you'll see now is a new toolbar button, new to some components. In other components, it was called preferences or parameters or something like that. All of that sort of mash-up of buttons that you can tick and flick has been renamed to options, which we sort of felt was a little bit more understandable or intuitive. So the options is where a lot of things that were in global configuration is now set up. This is where you can see new user activation. People can activate it themselves. They can just register. There's no activation, or an admin can do it. You'll also see more consistency in the submenus. Rather than just working off menus, and we'll see this in the article manager as well, the submenus are used more to jump between tightly linked features in any one component. So I'll skim over this in the next session as well, but you can see you can now got a chance to edit the groups without going to some third-party solution. And you've also got the ability to add custom access levels, which gives you more than the old public, registered, and special. But we'll go, as I said, we'll go over that more a little bit later. Mass mail is actually now part of the users component. It hasn't actually changed much, but you'll see the options there. You're getting into the user configuration. So we can cancel out of that. Okay, so we'll move on to what's happening in menus. Again, we've got this consistency in the submenu bar, so menus and menu items are a little bit more logically linked. We've made some improvements to just the visual characteristics of this view. Eventually, we'll also get a listing of what modules are actually linked to this menu. Was working. We'll just probably have to see. Something might have happened as we've been doing changes. And there's also a few buttons around the place that are emergency press this if things go really, really wrong. We've done a lot of work in the engine room of the menu system, and there are times where it might just sort of lose its way and get really freaky and just not work. And in those sort of times, what you'll do is press a rebuild button, and it will hopefully bring everything back and find all of the lost menu items that suddenly disappeared because something happened. So there's a rebuild button there. That's basically for in an emergency, press this and hopefully things will come back. The changes we've made also allow for performance improvements in the menu system itself, because it's a nested system. So we can have a look at we might have a look in here, and looks very similar to the 1.5 version. We can still filter on quite a few things. Some new filters in here are the ability to swap the menu that we're looking at from this view, rather than going up here and picking it from the menu. So that's rather nice. We should probably put the star in there. The depth filter has changed a bit. Previously you got to choose between a number of 1 and 20. We've trimmed that down a little bit, so by default you see everything, or you can limit it to 1, 2, 3 or 4. Beyond that it's just getting a little bit crazy, but there's a small change to the depth filter there. And another thing that you're going to see throughout almost all of the content areas of the site is the ability to filter on language. And I'll go into that a little bit further later, but I don't know that we have any in here. No. All content items can be given a language, and there's an interesting feature called the language switcher, which I'll have a look at later on. I think at 1.5 the default menu is called default. We've just subtle change to rename that to home, and a really cool thing is we can just click that from the menu on that empty star, and that'll work quite nicely. So that's a nice little addition. I might just trim this back to 5 so we can see things a little bit better. When we go into a new menu, a lot of people found that first step a little bit daunting. In 1.5, you come up with, there's all these components and things, and then there's very terse descriptions of category, blog, default layout, and all of that sort of stuff. And it was certainly an improvement over what we had in 1.0, but we just found a lot of people found it daunting. So when you go into a new menu item now, you go straight into the edit screen, and you get to, very similar to in 1.5, you get to change what type of menu it is. But now all of the descriptions are somewhat human readable. So instead of category article view, default article layout, it's display a single article, list all the categories, featured articles in all categories, and we've just basically given, there's one that isn't translated, so but these are all translatable into all languages. So this will just give it a slightly nicer feel, and hopefully make this area of the system a little bit more intuitive. So we can change that to a single article, and then our parameters there change. You'll notice over time these options may do interesting things. We've actually got a new feature that allows developers to change the options for all different types of content. So I'll cover this in my last session today. This area of any particular area of item of content could be affected by plugins, so people will be allowed to, you'll be able to add custom fields or custom options. So that's just something to look out for when people start developing new things for Joomla. In terms of fields in the menu itself, another common field that we're adding to content is a note, just a simple note. This is a non-display for the front end, but just gives you a place to put extra, please don't delete this type of messages, or whatever you want. In large sites, when you've got a menu item of 1,000 or any other content, it starts to get a little bit daunting, and there's usually one person in the world that has it all, a good picture in the head, and then they get sick and somebody's got to try and work out what the heck is this site going to do. So hopefully this will just help a little bit in that respect. There's a really interesting feature in menus now called template styles, and we'll look at the actual style itself later on. But in 1.5, you know, in the template manager, or in the module manager, in the template manager, you can define which template, you can link a template to a menu, but you only get one chance of doing that. Templates have the ability to set different parameters, but when you link that template to a menu, that's it. You only get one bite of the cherry. What we've done is add a system where you can actually save different types of styles within the one template, and in here you can actually link them at the menu level itself. So rather than doing it in a template manager where it's sort of a little bit off to the side, we're doing it in the menu where I think it's supposed to be. And you can see all templates, when they come in, they'll be given a default style, but you can see we've got the old Milky Way template there has a green and a red style, so we could pick that style for this particular menu item. They'll become a little bit clearer when we go into the template area, because there's quite a few changes in there. Okay, so as I said, parameters, basic parameters, advanced parameters are now basic options, advanced options. A lot of the labelling is more intuitive and a little bit more context sensitive, again to try and help people who aren't familiar with it learn the system. Another requested feature was the ability to sort of link the module menu relationship a little bit better. It's fine in the modules, but menus miss out a little bit. This will probably change. This area will probably change a little bit by the time 1.6 is released as stable, but we've included a way to at least edit the menu, the modules that are related to this menu. So this will probably change to a modal pop-up type system, and but you'll actually see when you're in the menu which modules are displaying on this menu, which I think is certainly a feature that was asked for quite early on last year. And we've had a few goes at different UIs with this. It's quite complicated because we've got to allow for large sites that use hundreds of modules, and you can see here this is just from the sample data alone. So just warning you, there'll be a few tweaks there by the time we bring out final. Okay, you'll see some new toolbars here as well, and this is another user interface consistency thing. The old apply button is now called save. The save button is now called save and close, so we think hope that's a little bit more intuitive for people. But there's a couple of new buttons. We only see one of them here, and that's save and new. So what this does is put in your content, save and new. It saves the content and brings you back to a new item. So you can plug away at, you're putting in 100 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rather than going back to the list, new, back to the list, new. So it'll save, 1 or 2 clicks every so often. That's consistent across everything. And I think that's a nice little feature that's been added. Okay, so some content lists have what we call batch processing. We haven't been able to do this across the board on everything. We just simply ran out of time. But in the menus, we do have some ability to do some batch processes. So, for example, we'd be able to make a selection, and we can change that selection to a particular access level. We can make a selection here, and in 1.5, you know, you can copy and move menu items to another menu, but you've never been able to attach them in the right part of the tree in another menu. Well, now you can say, please copy these two items under the article category list, or whatever that menu item is related to. Click process, and it should go away, and happily do that. So these sort of things will expand over time as we move into 1.7, 1.8. We'll just see how this goes for this version. Okay, so menus and menu item. Let's start wandering into content. So Articles Manager looks very similar to what you're used to. Something interesting in the filtering area is you can do an ID :A3, and you can just search. If you know the actual ID of the article, you can go straight to it. Just a little thing there to make it easier than. Sometimes things have similar titles and you'll still get 100 results even if you search for Australia. So that's a feature that is across the board. Articles, we could always select on access. We can filter by state. We can filter by the category, and we can filter by the languages as well. Now, big change in articles is we've dropped the sections and made one unified categories tree. So there's no longer the idea of a section and a category, and that's where it stops. We have a fully fledged category tree. So when we start looking at migration issues, what will happen is the sections will be migrated to your first level of your category, and the old Joomla 1.5 categories will be migrated to the second level under what would have been the old section. So back in the articles list, you can see we don't filter on section and category anymore. It's just the category. Another feature that we've made very common in all of the content is, it used to be in the menus and the articles that you had a separate trash management system. Well, now all trash is integrated into the list view of the content itself. And we don't allow you to delete by default. You can't accidentally delete an item anymore. It's got to go through a trash, then delete. So this applies to articles and news feeds, web links, any content that we've got. So we can trash this article, and it's gone from that list. By default, the list will show published and unpublished and archived, I think. But to actually go and delete that, you have to select the trash filter. And so this is another just safety feature to ensure that people don't accidentally delete things. And only when we have the trash feature on, the button, what was the trash or the old delete, becomes empty trash. And you've then got to select that, an empty trash. So we don't have undo, but that's the closest thing that we've got to just preventing people from accidentally deleting stuff. So that should be good for your site admins when somebody rings up, I've deleted my content. It's okay, it's only trash, don't worry. Also, the archived system that we have in 1.5 only applied to content. It's now across the board in all the content areas. So that should behave consistently as well. Okay, so we got a check-in button. That's new. I hadn't even noticed that one. So that's cool. We have a new check-in button to be able to automatically check in. So within the article itself, let's have a look. A few changes to the UI just to make things look a little bit fresher. Within the article or any content that uses the full nested category system, we've still only got the ability to assign content to one category. The main reason for this is it's very, very hard on the front end when you turn Ceph URLs on and you've got things in multiple categories. Choosing which category an article should have gone back to is rather difficult. So at this stage, if you want multi-category support, we're encouraging people to look at a tagging solution or a labeling solution to get that sort of multi-category system. And you think of these categories is your content hierarchy for the site itself. If you want that sort of other dimension happening, you do that with another system. There's been talk about changing that in 1.7. We'll just have to see how that goes. But for 1.6, no, you've got extra categories, but still only one category per content item or article. Okay. So in here we can change the state to trashed and archived and other things. Previously you couldn't do that. Couldn't change it to trashed. Access levels, okay, so we've got content language here. I think we had a language field over in this area, in the options area in 1.5. It's now a dedicated field over here. The old front page, we've renamed to featured because in the old days, almost everyone had the front page component on the front page, but that doesn't happen anymore, fortunately. And so we've just made this a featured setting. You'll also see, I believe, featured in contacts and some of the other, I don't believe all, but some of the other content components, news feeds and web links. We've also mapped the featured system to as well. Okay, not much has changed in the article text. In the options, there's a few little changes to alleviate what we call scaling problems. With the new access control system, or in 1.5, the created by selection used to key on somebody with author or publisher or editor or published permissions. Well, because the new access control system, user management system, allows you for anybody to be able to edit things, we've had to change that list box. So what you'll see in quite a few areas, and you'll also see it when selecting media, is rather than these areas being list boxes, they become modal pop-ups, and you're able to search for a particular user and select them. So again, you'll be seeing that more and more in the interface, and that's just because the list boxes, we've had sites with 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 users, and a list box with that many users in it just, well, for a start the page won't load, and for a second trying to find the right user is extremely difficult. Okay, so very similar deal with the options, the tick and flicks that we had in 1.5. Something that you'll see again in content and particularly in modules is the ability to use an alternate layout. What this does is, and we'll have a look. Okay, so in 1.5 we have what we call a layout override system, and this allows the template developer to override any of the core output in any component or a module. But again, you only ever got one bite of the cherry. You can only have one layout override per site. What the alternate layout does is it goes off and actually looks in the default template overrides and see if there's other ones there. So you'll be able to roll variations of other layouts and select them for individual content items or individual articles. So it'll give you, again, a little bit more flexibility to do creative things with sets of content or individual content. So this article, a lot of people want to say, I just want this article to look this way and no other. Well, you'll be able to create your own layout override for it in the default template, and you'll be able to select that as an alternate layout. You'll see there's a new pane here for article permissions. Again, we'll go into that a little more in the next session. But suffice to say, you'll be able to define who can edit, delete and change the publishing state of an individual article. We'll also see that happens at various other levels as well. Okay, metadata is very, very similar to 1.5. Okay, so I mentioned before when we're in menus, I think some new toolbars. So remember, save is the new apply, save and close is the new save. We've got save and new. We've also got save as copy. So when you're in this case, an article, when you click save and copy, what that will do is it won't save that article. But what it will do is create a new copy of that article and bring you back into that new copy. So it gives you the effect of being able to create draft content that you can go into, save as copy, and then continue on with your modifications. This would be excellent for things like job advertisements, which have a similar effect. It just saves you having to do the copy and then selecting the section and that sort of thing. So it's a nice little feature. So you can go in, save as copy, make your changes. Then you need to do another one. Save it as a copy, and just keep rolling. So there's lots of little productivity improvements that we've added to 1.6. Okay. I think, yep, featured is clickable. That's good. So we'll just jump into the featured articles. Again, I mentioned before the submenu is trying to tie together common features, and this is an area where we've added the featured article management in the context of what's happening with the rest of the article system. And not much has changed here. Any article here you mark as featured will turn up in the featured articles. And the main purpose of this view was to allow for people to set specific ordering for featured articles. I really don't know whether that's totally necessary anymore with all of the options that we've got for displaying ordering, but it's there. Okay, so we can have a look at categories, and you can see immediately we've got this wonderful tree, which a very highly anticipated new feature in 1.6, possibly at your peril to use. I do not recommend going too deep with your categories just because it will become a little bit unmanageable. But if you want to go to 100 levels deep in categories, knock yourself out, but do not complain if the screen goes a little bit wonky as it indents down there. Oops. Again, very similar options to before. You can trash a category now. Something that's gone missing, or that is a feature that we haven't carried through to 1.5, is you used to be able to click the access and cycle through the access levels. We don't have that anymore, just because you'll be able to, because you can create your own access levels now, clicking that becomes meaningless. And I don't know, anyone ever seen Toy Story where the guy's going around the channels? it'll sort of be a bit like that. So we've taken that out. This would be an excellent area for a batch update, and hopefully we'll see that in 1.7. Again, because this is a tree system, we've got this magical rebuild button. The categories could get a little bit strange for one reason or another, and that rebuild button will hopefully at least get all your categories back and be able to manipulate them. The system should work okay. It might be some third parties messing around with the categories that break it. It's called a nested tree system, and when it's working well, it works really well, but you get one number wrong and it can really stuff things up. So again, there's a magical rebuild button. Don't be too quick to jump on that unless you have to. On a large site of thousands of categories, that can take a while to do, and your front-end site might be doing some strange things as that's rebuilding the category index. So we'll have a quick look in the category itself. You immediately notice it's a lot richer than the old category system, the old category edit form that we had in 1.5. We've got the note field, again, to just write notes about what this category is for. You can select the parent instead of selecting the section. We can define a language for this particular piece of content. Usual description. But here we can see we've actually got some options, or what we would call parameters in 1.5. We've got this alternate layout thing happening again. We can select the image. As I said, for the user selector, we've gone to a modal pop-up system for that, so you can click on the image and actually go to the media manager rather than being locked into one particular folder. Category has article access rules. Again, I'll go into that in the next section, but you can define who can create, delete, edit, and edit the state of categories and or content in those categories as well. And finally, we've actually got some meta information for categories, descriptions and keywords, alternative page title, author, and your robots. So you don't need to add those third-party extensions to actually get the SEO, or search engine optimization, search engine ordering systems to be able to do the categories. There is still a problem with the root category, or the no category situation. We haven't been able to solve that terribly well yet. But as long as something's in a category, you're given the ability to define meta options for that. So one of an interesting feature that is in the content now is to do with checked out information. In 1.5, when you check something out, nobody else could get into it. What we do now is when something's checked out, and I'll see if I can do it. In 1.5, that link wouldn't be active. In 1.6, that link is now active, and you can go in. The item, even though the item will still be checked out, you can actually go into that edit form and at least have a look at what's there. So if you're doing phone support or anything like that, you'll actually be able to get in and see what a person's doing and walk them through here. Here's what's to change. But the other thing that it can do as well is some of the toolbar buttons are still active, like save as copy. So you can go into something somebody's working on and save that information as a copy and keep working on it. So that's another little productivity, usability thing that should help, particularly people doing phone support or remote support. You don't have to imagine what the person was seeing anymore. Okay. So that pretty much covers a lot of what's in the category manager. I'll just duck back to the user manager for a second and have a look. have a look at some of the other options that are in a menu. We've added the ability to specify a link title attribute, the CSS style, and actually be able to override the page title element itself. So those are a few new SEO improvements that we've done to the menu system. Okay, so we might just take a quick walk through some of the component changes. We can have a look at banners. Very similar to the old thing to the 1.5 version, where we've got our clients and our categories. And there's a new thing called tracks here. In 1.5 there was always a hidden feature that you could track the clicks on the banners to a particular time. So that you could, the thought was we'd build a system that would be able to look at how things are being clicked on and that sort of thing. And we just never got around to finishing that in 1.5, but somebody's been able to do that for 1.6. So you'll be able to do time-based analysis on how people are tracking things. There's also, again, you can see we've got the ability to set the content language. All the usual suspects for filters. Filter on client, I think, might be new. But if we have a look in the banner itself, there's a little bit of a UI change here that you can work on a banner that's this particular image, or you can go to custom and it will just hide all of the stuff that doesn't relate to the other. It's a nice little improvement there. Quite a few new publishing options in banners. And again, this is a standardisation drive. You're all familiar with publish start and publish finish in articles. We've also rolled them out into almost every other piece of content as well, to be, again, quite consistent in the way content behaves, with a view that, in 1.7, 1.8, all content sort of merges into the ethereal CCK type of system. CCK is content creation kit, or another way of putting it is custom content types. So yeah, we've got publish start and publish finish. There's a new, you get to get the ability to track impressions on an individual banner. So if it's just a banner there, you don't really care who clicks on it, you can turn that off. Track impressions is tracking the number of views that the number of times a banner displays, and tracking clicks is whether you actually track the click-ons of that. There's also a purchase type there. Forgive me, I don't know exactly how that behaves, but you're able to, with the impressions made, you're able to put those in the context of, is this a daily thing, a weekly thing, monthly thing? And there's also a created date there. Meta keywords are still very, very similar to the old system. I haven't enabled tracking, but in there you'd see when you start clicking on things that you'd get line items for each time a particular banner was clicked. You can have a look at some of the options. So they're default options, and in the options itself are what we call component permissions, and we'll look at that in depth in the next session. Okay, so contact manager. Again, very similar sort of thing, categories and language. I think we've got some extra fields in the category manager, contact manager, and the ability to turn featured contacts on and off, which could be useful in the front end if you're wanting to display a particular set of contacts that you want to look at, or push people to the contact form. Some extra things like sort fields and that. Heaps of options. Lots of new links. I would say most of those you'd probably take advantage of in a layout override. Contact form. Okay, a couple of options for the contact form and the obligatory metadata. So, some new goodies in there. Messages, private messages, we haven't really changed much. It's still very much like it is in 1.5. News feeds, again, not much change other than the standardisation, adding language. I think we've got published start, published end, created by, all of that sort of standard stuff in all of the content components. Web links, again, web links is very similar to newsfeed, so in terms of its sophistication, they're very similar. But again, you know, we've got language there, language added, I think, and published start, published end. In web links now. Count clicks. There's the ability to turn count clicks off, so you can just go straight to the URL if you're not worried about who's clicking through the particular web link. Web links. Redirect. Now, redirect's a new extension in 1.6. A lot of you would install things like sh404ceph or that sort of thing to capture a page not found error, or what's called a 404 error. And Redirect Manager works with a plugin. So when this plugin is on, when we get a 404 page not found on the front end, it will record that and just let it sit there. Now, what's cool here is it doesn't have to be necessarily used to what it can be used for is if you change the URL of a particular article or any URL changes, you can put that in Redirect Manager and put the new URL in, and this will just automatically go to the new URL. So it's good if you're changing content, but it's also good for doing shortcuts as well. And okay, so this is the first time we've actually seen the front end with it. It's a tradition that we have a new template for every version, and this one's called Bees2. What we can do is I've got Ceph partially enabled, so we still have the index.php. I want to have a shortcut page to just a quick URL or something like that. So I'm going to go to shortcut. That page isn't found, so that's cool. But what the Redirect Manager has done is it's detected the fact, hey, somebody tried to get to this page and I don't know what to do with it. It's just sitting there waiting for you to do something. These logs are probably going to grow quite quickly over time. So what we can do is, now I want that shortcut to go to information about upgraders. So I go to the upgraders page, I copy that URL. I'm going to go into here, put that in the destination URL, comment, this is a really cool shortcut. I can save and close that, and now that's there. Now, that won't work yet because by default all of these are unpublished, so we can publish that. And now I can go back to here. I can shortcut HTML. I'll just I'll go to another page just to prove to you that it's not smoke and mirrors. Well, it actually is smoke and mirrors. So we can go to shortcut and it's redirected to that page. There's a little bit of an error there. We'll sort that out. But that's a really neat little feature. So you don't need Bitly or trim anymore. You can just have your own little thing, and I'm sure somebody will make a component to be able to do those easier. But that's what it does. So one thing I should warn you about is in 1.6, if you've got, some sites will have a penalty on the URLs, some sites won't. It really depends on how you've designed it. If you don't have Ceph on, these human readable versions, particularly in the sections and categories area, if you've got any section blogs, those don't exist in 1.6 anymore. So those URLs won't exist. And we will probably, in the upgrade process, or the migration process, pre-populate all the URLs and where they should go. But this is where that's one instance where you're going to need redirect. Again, if you're using Ceph URLs to just manage a whole section blog and you let the system work out what the URL is, those URLs are going to change. You're no longer going to have /number section name /number category name. Those URLs will differ. So it is something you're going to have to watch, and because nobody wants to lose their Google ranking or other search engine ranking. But that's why this component is there. And it will automatically detect those. As I said, hopefully the upgrader will catch most of them. I suggest when you do upgrade your sites, you do a dry run and try and get something to hammer it, and then you can go back to redirect, find out, oh, okay, these are the ones I need to change. And eventually you should be able to turn that off when you're looking at this purely from a fixing up the old URLs that don't work in your site. So that's a really cool new feature in 1.6. Okay, so we'll move on to the Extension Manager. Extension Manager is quite different. Well, it's actually similar, but more things that you can do in here. And there's actually more goodies in here for the developers rather than the administrators. But we can have a look at some things. So we've got a unified Extension Manager with a lot of new things that you can do. So the install page is very, very similar. You can still install a zip that you download or from a directory or directly from a URL, say Joomla code. But there's also the ability to discover things. And how this works is, particularly some large payload extensions have a lot of trouble with timeouts, and you try and upload the zip and the site will just sit there and never come back, or timeout or something like that. You've now got the ability to upload a component via FTP into its place, and we'll see what happens here. Nothing's discovered because everything's registered there. And it will detect, hey, I've got a new module here that I don't know anything about, or there's a new plugin I don't know something about, or a new component. What do you want me to do with it? And you can tick the button and go install that. So it's a workaround for some really big, heavy components, some templates that are hideously big. It should help with, and templates that would be excellent for. You'll be able to FTP up the template and discover it. Now, why we need this is because in 1.5 you could add a module, you could just FTP up a module and could just FTP up a template and Joomla would automatically detect them. That's no longer the case. You have to actually discover them first because we're actually registering modules and templates in the database itself, so we need to discover them. But that's what this system is for. When the managed screen is just a unified version of the, in 1.5 I think we had all of the different extension types listed here. Manage just brings that all into one interface and you can select by type. A new thing that you will be able to install is a library. more use for the developers, but you can, the Joomla framework works on a system of libraries, and you'll be able to add your own libraries. For example, a Google Maps library, or some other API that somebody's got. Probably won't affect the system administrator too much. It'd be more use for the developers. And you'll also be able to install a package, which is basically just a zip of zips of different extensions. So there's been some workaround solutions by some extension developers to be able to upload a component. It's 16 modules, it's 32 plugins and a template all at the same time. Well, now an extension developer just needs to zip all of those individual extensions up, zip that into one package. They'll include a simple XML file to be able to tell you what's in that, and you'll be able to just upload the whole suite of whatever you're doing. So, ideal for the K2s, the zoos, those extensions which come with a myriad of supporting extensions, modules and plugins and things. So that will be really interesting. Update, I can't really show you yet because there's nothing live, but we've also got the ability in Joomla to be able to register to third-party update sites. So, mentioned K2. K2 would be able to publish what is an XML file to tell people what's the latest version. And this will go away and have a look at that site every so often and say, hey, there's a new version of K2, or hey, there's a new version of Zoo available, and you'll be able to follow through a process to upgrade. Now, I don't know whether you'll be able to click a button here and do that, but that's the principle anyway. We don't, there's no inbuilt ability to upgrade the Joomla core yet. We're still working on a neater way of doing that. Until that time, you'll have to rely on Sam's little really cool extension that he wrote for that. Hopefully he's going to do a ripper for 1.6. So, yeah, so that's the installer. Not a lot of immediate benefits, but down the track you'll be using what the toys that the developers have to play with in this area. And I'll be going into some of the deeper stuff in here for the developers in the last session this afternoon. Okay, let's have a look at the module manager. Some really, really, really cool things happening in the module manager. Again, we've got all of the usual suspects in the filters. Again, we're able to set the language that a module is relevant for. But hang about. We don't have the site and the admin submenu anymore. That's just a filter. So filter on the site, filter on the administrator modules. Let's go back to the site, and we can go into here. A couple of features that have been asked for a long time. Start and finish time for modules. So a module can go up and go down at a particular time. But the biggest one is the area of module assignment. So 1.5 we can install on all pages, show it on all pages. We could also show this module on no pages. All the pages selected. Well, now in 1.6 we can show the module on every page except the one selected. So there's an exclusion. So we can show this module on those 3 pages. I think only on the pages selected. So we can save that, and it should come back saved. Or we can do it just on the, this doesn't do much, but we can just on those, accept those, we can show it on the pages except those selected, so this module will display on every other page except using Joomla Getting Started, these couple of menu items. But another little thing that we tried to make things easy is, say you want to we will also allow you to toggle the selection so that if you have to select 20 of 100, you can just, but you wanted the balance of that, you can just select the fewer number and swap it around. So that's a nice little feature there as well. But that's the biggest thing in modules, is the ability to exclude modules from certain pages, and also the publish up and publish down times, to very frequently asked for features. Yep. So that's really all there is in the modules. Plugins are pretty much no change to the plugins themselves. Plugin management, there are a few new plugins available though. I'll go into language switch. I'll go into language switching a little bit later. Template manager, a lot of change in here because we've added, as I mentioned earlier on, we've added the ability to define particular styles, and this is where we are able to define those styles. So what we can see here is, as I said, every template gets a default sort of setting, and whatever its defaults are. But we can go into this style, and here's the Bees2 default style, and we can make any selection that we want here. The default style is, and this is all standard stuff that you would have seen in 1.5. So we're choosing the nature, template color, HTML, HTML5. Incidentally, Bees2 has a little HTML5 switch for people who want to play with it, and has some layered overrides to see how that's been achieved. So that's a interesting feature. But what we've done here is we can see there's a second template style there, which is default nature, and that's been used to, okay, so sorry. This is just another style, and we can change this to HTML5, we can change it to personal, we can wrap a small to 20%, and we can save that. So you can run as many styles as you like, as opposed to making umpteen copies of the template just to get a slightly different parameter. And so we go back to when you've created your style, you can go back to here and you can select one of those styles for that individual menu item. Now the styles don't cascade down the menu tree at all, so it's a one-to-one map. So any submenus here can still have a different style. We may include cascading at a later date. I don't know. We'll just have to see how people go with this sort of system. So that's templates. So that's the idea of template styles, and then we've got another area for just the installed templates themselves. This is very very similar to the old system, where you've got the ability to edit some CSS and edit some pages. We've also added in the ability to edit the error page and edit the print view in the hope that people will actually do that, because one thing that's terribly done in Joomla at the moment is people don't change the red screen of death of the error page, and people don't change what is called the component.php file, which is the print view. So when you get that pop-up view, it's generally missed. So hopefully this will encourage people to say, oh, actually we can change this. And you can edit all of the CSS files that are included with the template. I would have liked to include the ability to generate layout overrides as well, but we just ran out of time with that. Yeah, so that's where you actually edit the details of the individual template, and this is where you're able to create individual styles to attach to a menu item. And again, we've got these nice clicky features, so we can go to nature, and so that's the default style. So not only have you got a default template, there's the idea you can have a default style. I believe it will also, that won't happen here, but in the menu you will also be able to create a home page for an individual menu when we get to the language switcher. Yeah, so we'll just put that back there. I think that's all we want to do in templates. So we come to the language manager now, and generally, if you're like me, you don't delve into the language manager much because I don't need to read my site in Greek or English, Greek or Russian or French or anything like that. But so, in terms of installed languages, I never install a language pack on my site. However, I've often done articles and people have done a translation for me. And I thought, gee, wouldn't it be nice if I can just put that article up in French and be able to, show people that it's in that language? Well, we've given you the ability to define your own content languages. So you have the installed language packs, which actually change the fixed strings, like this language manager content languages. That title would be translated into every language, would be translated by the language pack. But now you can define content languages, so that if you've got an article that's in French, you can just write that article as a normal article. The site's still in English, and but that one will be marked as French. And you can have these are not related to the installed languages at all. They're quite independent. And this is where the language filter picks up, as we can see in there. If we go back to articles very quickly, this is the content language. This is not the installed language. So very important to get that distinction. And when you install a language pack, it doesn't necessarily add that to the language filters either. I think that's correct. So we go in here, and again, this is we're looking at the content languages here. Now, in terms of languages, a particular item of content can be assigned to all languages, or it can be assigned just to one language. And the effect that has is when we turn the language switcher on, content that is marked for all always displays. But when the language switcher is on, content that is, when you select the language for the switcher, it will knock out any other language that is specifically defined. So you've got the ability for one language or all languages. And I'll show you now how that starts to come into play. So if we go back to our plugin manager, and we'll just search for lang, we have a new plugin called the System Language Filter. And all we have to do is turn that on. I actually didn't have to go in there, there's no parameters there. So we can turn that on, and the second step is to, site. Then we add the language switcher module to the front of the site, which just basically it's a little module that puts up all the flags that you can click. It's a simple, so we can say language. We can use image flags if we want. Let's have a guess that left is there, and we want that on all pages. You might only choose to put the language switcher on the home page. It's really up to you. And we'll save that. We'll publish that, go home, and with luck, it displays. Doesn't display. Okay. This was the one thing I didn't practice. Okay, we don't have a left position, that's why. Okay, let's do the old TP equals 1 trick. Position -7 looks to be the winner. Oops. So I'll change that to position 7, apply that. Yay, we got it there, okay. So now we can click on the Queen's English and only either content that is in the Queen's English or all is displayed, or we have this strange test language called XXXXXXX. So it does, I don't think it actually relates to anything. So we can click on that language and only content in all or XX will be seen. Now, where you'll start seeing the effect is in the URL. This isn't a good example, and I don't quite know where we've done some testing of this in the sample data, but you'll see the URL starts to be affected by. Oops. We go back to the home page. So if we're in XX language or French or German or whatever we want, you'll see that starts appearing in the URL there, up here. We can go back to English, British, and go through there. And if we had any French or German, that content would start to be dropped out. This is not intended to be a full-on dynamic translation system like Joomfish is, or there's some other projects around that are doing on-the-fly translation. It's simply the ability to give you the ability to switch the language of the content. And as we've seen as we've gone through, menus have the ability. Menus can be filtered by language. Modules can be filtered by language. All your content can be filtered by language. So it does give you the ability to. So if you're a company and you're selling goods to 2 different countries, England and Europe and America, you can have, it means duplicate content in terms of the number of articles that you write, but you'll be able to have that site now working without resorting to some solutions that are just far too heavy for what your site. Not everybody needs Joomfish. My site, I might only have 1 article in French. Hey, this gives me the ability to all my articles. I'll do all my articles in all languages, but here's this really cool one that somebody did in French. Be able to mark that French, switch to French, and I'd be able to mark my English one as English, my French one as French, and when I use the language switcher, the article will just change to the French one when I'm in French. Sorry, tough, you're going to have to read the English for the rest of the site and the navigation, but it really does give you a little bit of a way of doing bilingual or multilingual sites, and the translation community is really excited about this particular feature. Okay. So that pretty much ends the walkthrough of the new and changed things in 1.6. I'm excited about what's in there. We couldn't do everything that we wanted to do, but we've certainly done a lot of things that people have been really hanging out for. The nested categories, the access controls, and languages features, because Joomla has a very strong and supportive international community. And in 1.5, you might have remembered that we made the administrator translatable. In 1.6, we've carried on that tradition of making things better for translation. Probably the last thing I need to highlight is I missed in the templates, is that the backend now ships with two templates. There's Bluestalk and there's Hathor. And Hathor is an accessible back-end template. It's not perfect, but it does go a long way to complying. And we might just have a really quick look at that one. So if I go to Styles and I make Hathor the default administrator, it looks a bit weird, but it's not meant to be. This is geared for being read by screen readers. I'm going to have to go back because it just looks a bit, because I'm not used to it. If we have a look at the styles, you can, we'll do it. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so we go into the Hathor style. We can go to high contrast colours. Which, looks awful, but for somebody who's colourblind, that will actually look, they can actually read that. We've got the ability to do there's an alternate menu. I think that's got to do, again, with the screen readers. The high contrast is obviously the most impressive. We can save and close that. And different layout, things are in a different area of the screen, so the screen reader picks up those first. A lot of work's gone into that particular template, and it will be good to for those in the community that need that sort of thing. And there's quite a few people that are interested in helping this area out. It'll be good to see that grow. So once again, thanks for listening, and I hope you're a little bit excited about this release. And so next session we'll really dig into the user access controls, and you'll either be really excited or your brain will be completely fried. But anyway, so thanks, and that ends the talk. Pause for cut.